Such an honor. I got to see Nathan Curtis at this Enterprise UX event, and I was like, wow. So I had this problem in our company of making some kind of design system, and so immediately reached out to him, and he was so gracious to collaborate with us, so thank you for that, Nathan. And we had a special moment just now. Did you feel the moment? Like, I'm a super fan of Julianne Horvath, so I was like, wow, I get to listen to her talk. We had this beautiful moment where that connection occurred, where there was a moment here where I could see.
So I have had a really interesting career in tech. I've loved every second of it, and I wouldn't do anything differently. But there is one thing that I kind of wanted to correct since I'm up here and I have your attention. You all look like very kind people, so I should get to it. A lot of people credit me with being like the first woman developer and designer at GitHub. That's actually really not true. I was not. And the only reason that, I was able to occupy that space and do amazing things there, like, don't get me wrong, like passion projects, and I was able to build so much community, was because of, I see Gina tearing up, and I'm like, oh no, was because of this woman right here. She made this space for so many of us, and you can tell just by how the love that she puts into this conference, that none of us would be here without her. So thank you, Gina. When I say there's no one who has been kinder to me and more supportive to me in the darkest times of my career, I mean that, and thank you so much, like from the bottom of my heart. I really love you. Thank you all. Let's hear from John Maeda.
So I saw this moment. Did you see that moment? Can we just have a moment? Can we just share that moment? I can't tell you how those kind of moments are the kind of things you will always remember because they have to do with colleagueship. So who has a colleague here that they admire and adore that you're with right now? Okay, I want you to remember that this is a very adorable, this is almost like unanimous. If you don't worry, you'll find one here. But the reality is the world keeps spinning and tumbling and changing, and the work that you do is valuable. So you will not be in the same organization in 4 years from now. You're going to keep tumbling through it. And it's those relationships that you build that are going to be the part that makes it special. So I want to urge you to have your own Julie Gina moment like that, because that's a special thing. So I was outside working on my talk and hanging out in the hallway. And I saw Yesenia, because I use Twitter as how I learn. There's also bad things on Twitter nowadays too, but I step around them, right? And they say as my team knows, I have all these things that are so boring to them now. But I was told that if you see an elephant in your way, walk around it. So on Twitter, I walk around a lot of things and sort of find things. And when I saw the work by Yesenia, I was so psyched. I DM'd her, and that's not good sometimes, but she understood, and I'm a fan of her work. Also, the material team, I feel like this community, I'm very proud to be connected into it. And also out there was Cody. Where's Cody, Eventbrite people? I was hired by John Donahoe 5 years ago, who led the eBay companies, to work on their design culture. And I remember being perplexed. I was perplexed how hard it was to build a design culture in a technology company. And I was like, why is this so hard? So that helped me understand the multiple problems that exist in a technology company running at scale across many sub-companies. What a great learning experience. And as I walked into the SVA Theater, there was Emily Campbell. I said, hi. And I asked Emily, what is the main thing I should know about this event? And Emily said, you have to know that it isn't really about the technology. It's about the P word, the people word. It's about the people. And I'm sure all of you are struck by this people problem. How many of you are aware that people cause problems around you? Raise your hand. That's a very, very educated audience. Some of you may not know this. They do that sometimes. Actually, a lot of times. But sometimes they do good things, right? You saw Lord of the Rings, right? Sometimes some things turn out okay. And outside there, I talked to Cameron, and Cameron came up to me and said that he read some blog post by me from 19-something, whatever, where I said that if you're going to go to learn about technology, you should go to ITP. NYU, who went to NYU ITP? Raise your hand. Come on. ITPers, yes. Okay, ITP, yeah. So ITP was run by someone named Red Burns. Who knows Red Burns' name? Okay, it's to minority. You have to learn about Red Burns. This phone number is my phone. It's my burner number. It's active for 48 hours. If you have any questions for me, I'll try to answer them. I don't believe in like blah, blah, blah. So just like, just text me a question and it'll take care of that. Because in reality, Gina was so kind to reshape this session in a way that I thought was important. I think that Julie mentioned that word partnerships. I'm a big believer in partnerships and the team. And so part of my team is here. So I want to have a conversation with Nathan Curtis. I want to have like a Nathan Curtis Oprah-style moment with you all. So that is available for those of you who expected to get an answer to something that I didn't have. So please go ahead and ask that question. But the reason why Red Burns is important for all of you in this room to study, it's because how many of you have mentors who have died yet? Raise your hand. You see, it's minority. 10 years from now, this will be like, everyone's going to raise their hand. Because the problem with having a mentor is they all die. It's really easy. Like, all my mentors, all dead. So, no, I'm sorry. It's okay. It's all right. You have to figure stuff out after a while. But mentors all die. And when they die, you're like, oh my gosh, I lost my mentor, and they just keep going left and right and left and right. But Red Burns was an amazing mentor. I loved Red Burns. But once you die, people forget you immediately. Your SEO goes to crap. Like there's no content to feed the machine. SEO down, 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 down. So like when I'm gone, boom, it's gonna go down. So while I'm alive, I wanna tell you of a person named Red Burns. I'd like you to search for her because she was one of the pioneers of electronic media who understood that people mattered first and that diversity, international diversity, gender diversity, field diversity, any kind of diversity made for a better mix of people working together. And she has a piece out there, and this is one of the pages. Collaboration will jar you, provoke, and confront you with different ways of looking at the world. Allow this to happen. Embrace it. Why did she give this message to people, the ITP over there? It's because the problem with artists or creative people is they're all taught this terrible myth. The myth is you're a creative genius, fallen from the heavens, and you have the superpower to make the most amazing art in the world, and the world will find you someday because you're so badass. It's this tome you hear, like, I just will do my thing, and I'm have integrity for my work, and someday the world will find me. This is a bad idea. First of all, that's again counting that your SEO will work for you if you're invisible. But as you know, it's not going to work out. The reality is that Red Burns saw artists as needing to collaborate, to work with other people, to connect with different cultures, to not be this isolationist superhero from the sky, because that superhero from the sky only exists because of modern myths. I'm sure all of you have a favorite famous artist in your mind. You should know that 90% or more famous artists are all independently wealthy. Did you know that? How is it they can do what they're doing? It's because they have capital. Capital is what made that happen. So if you don't have a trust fund, you got to play like this. You have to play collaboratively. And Red understood that. She tried to imbue upon artists, creatives, that you have to work in teams. Now, there's Cody there, but notice in the back over here, I saw someone over there. Oh, look, there's Desi Garcia. Desi on my team from IBM. Hey, Desi. She's just Google Desi. Desi's got some good stuff out there. Desi, and then I kind of zoomed over, and then there's Alison with Desi, selfie time. And then over there's Alexis coming soon. And as we were sitting out there, we were having a meeting because our company is all distributed, all remote. So while you were all walking to lunch and you might have seen some strange man sitting near the exit, I was working with a team over here. And that's the automatic design team, all distributed using every possible, every which way technology to try to connect across all the time zones and all the people without any physical reality. It's quite difficult, I must say, because a lot of things you take for granted in physical space go away. At the same time, I enjoy it thoroughly because it's a set of design problems, a set of design constraints, and we're solving those constraints and we're sharing them. Now, I'm big on this word team. I was never big on this word team because I believed in that tome of the lone superhero genius that can bring balance to the force, etc. But I had this epiphany in the 90s where how many of you are like basketball fans? Raise your hand. Basketball fan. So I say, I was not a basketball fan. I am a non-sports fan in general. But I noticed that the Olympics, the U.S. Olympics basketball team would always win. How? Because they had the best basketball players in the world, right? They had Michael Jordan. They had all these people, I don't know their names, but they're famous, right? But then I noticed that around the third Olympic Games, the U.S. basketball team did not win. Can you believe it? Like the world's best players all on the same team, and they couldn't win. And then the second time around, they didn't win again. And so my brain said, wait a second. What does that say? It says the simple fact that a team of geniuses can lose. Ooh. So I began studying teamwork and trying to understand it. And I got my MBA as a hobby because I didn't understand what finance people were saying to me and organizational behavior people would say to me. So I had to learn their language. On the way, I discovered this animal, which is the octopus. I love the octopus. How many of you love eating octopus? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you respect the octopus? Thank you. Whoa, more respecters than eaters in this room. Okay, so the octopus is super smart. The octopus can like put shells on and protect itself. It can do like a lot of things. Now, the reason why I think the octopus is so interesting from a leadership perspective is that the octopus is the one animal where the brain is not the smartest part. It's a tiny brain, but it's so good at protecting itself and working in the world because it has 8 tentacles, and each of them are super smart. And they're all coordinating lightly with the puny brain. To me, I think of this as a metaphor for the best possible kind of teamwork. And so I have been after this team to build this team for quite a while. Have I succeeded yet? I am working on that right now. And I think I'm close to it. But here's the problem with leadership. This is something I made for the World Economic Forum in 2013. I sketched it out, and this is my picture of leadership. Let me explain. So the problem with leadership, it usually looks like this. You get the team together. You use the Jeff Bezos pizza rule. You get them all together, and you go up the mountain, and you take it on. You have vision, mission, values. You know, you sign up for Trello. You do all the right things. And you like go after it. You go after it, you know? You get the best tools, and you do it. But what people don't tell you is that it isn't you're going up the mountain, you're jumping down the mountain. You're jumping off the mountain, actually. Now, here's a problem with someone who's jumping off the mountain. Some people see it as a spectator sport. Are you aware? Who's done something and notice that other people aren't cheering for you. Raise your hand, come on. Yes, you know it. Like, will they make it? I don't know, right? It's like, how are they going to survive? Let's see what happens. Now, it turns out that ideally there is a lush, deep pond right below that moment. That is a good moment. And if you make it into that patch of water, you get to survive. You're reborn. Like, whoa, what happened? And you come out of the water, cold, drenched. And then you kind of like get your bearings again. You stabilize. And what happens after that, you go back up the mountain again, like a fool. This is a good leader. A good leader can do this over and over and over without any kind of like loss of energy. And when I think about leadership, this is my favorite. So all of you, please go and get the movie Buck. Who's heard of Buck? Buck, come on, yes. Good movie, huh? Buck, yes. Buck, the horse whisperer. It's about a man who trained horses and could teach others how to train horses. It's going to be sampled that.
And then he started working with all these babies. And I was blown away. I mean, I couldn't believe what I saw
Mysterious horse
and the
whisperer.
rapport that he had.
And he does this thing. I'm going to show you little clips.
The way I go about
So he's
getting to
teaching
20
people
pounds
how
is going to have a lot to
to
do
train
with
a
whether you're
horse.
successful or not.
And what happens is that he has all these people who are wealthy who buy horses and like, I want a horse. They buy a horse. What happens to the horse? The horse is like a real person and needs attention. If you don't take care of the horse and raise the horse becomes evil horse. And so they all go to Buck for a clinic. So who will be a horse with me? Anyone want a horse with me? Come here, you horse with me. Come on. A horse with me. Okay. Jeremy. All right. So Jeremy, thank you, Jeremy. So Jeremy is my horse. And so Buck, what he does in this instance, you'll have to put that down.
Okay.
That's a fancy camera horse. Oh, it's a
it.
rich horse. Okay. So the example he gives, if you watch the film, is he says, okay, here I am. Okay, so like, I'm a horse, and you want me to go somewhere. What do you do? Okay, so what's happening now?
You're resisting.
Why would I resist? Try it again. Yeah, you're stronger than me. Yeah. I don't want to go that way, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now you do. Now you be the horse. Okay. So you're a really nice horse. You don't want to go.
No, I don't want to go. Okay.
Oh, you're stronger than me. Okay, right?
Okay.
So let's say you want to go that way instead. Mm-hmm. Come this way. Okay. So I'm coming with you, right?
Uh-huh.
It's kind of better, isn't it?
Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah, it's gonna. I'm gonna go where I want to. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy. So the example that he gives is that when you tug on the horse is gonna pull back. But if you can go with the horse where the horse wants to go, now you have momentum, and you can go where the horse wants to go and where you want to go at the same time. And so I think of that as an analogy for leadership. The problem with leaders is that we get focused on things. This is my other favorite octopus example. So this is a nature film of the octopus getting its prey. Oh, I want to eat that delicious crab. See that? It's exciting. It's like it's going to get that crab. What happened? Yeah, I know nature happens. So I like this analogy. Oh, it's so funny. But I like that as an analogy for, you think you figured something out. This is totally tractable. It's going to be okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so close. And then wham, you get taken out from the side, right? Who has experienced this? Yes, raise your hand. Does it feel good? No. It feels new? No. It feels worse when people say, I didn't mean that, right? It feels even worse because you can't defend yourself suddenly. So this is an analogy for what happens when you do things. It is not a beautiful trek up the mountain. it is a beautiful dive to see if you might make it. It's also a question of how you're doing things. How much information can you maintain in the periphery at the same time, which is very hard because you have no idea what's going to happen. So all you can do is to have thicker skin. I know, a terrible sort of conclusion. But I have learned over time that if you are someone who makes things, you're the happiest person in the world. I'm making things. I feel so good. I did something, and I can see it, and I can show it to you, and I can go home and have my dinner and watch television, or Netflix now, I guess. It's all really good if you're a maker. But if you're like not just making, if you're leading and organizing, you can't lean on that maker muscle. No. You have people who are what I call full-time talkers. Do you know what I'm talking about? People have no idea how to make anything. They're talking. Maker. Talker. Good. Let's have lunch. Talker, right? Makers over here are like, talkers. They can't make anything. Make. And the talkers over here are like, I'm going to get these makers to do something, right? Makers here are saying, they'll never get us to do that. In reality, think about it. Talkers cannot make at all. So they will find a way to make the makers make what the talkers want. Because they have a lot of time. They have all the time to talk. Makers like, they'll never get us to do it because we're making, right? So the analogy is that the maker who lives as a maker-talker, is doomed because they're not accepted by the makers anymore. Why? Because they talk. And the talkers over here are like, I guess you're kind of a talker. We can go get lunch or whatever and everything, but you're a maker, right? You got cool glasses. What glasses should I get? As if you knew, right? Okay, so good. You're so advanced. Okay. So I have 5 quotes I want to leave you with that I use all the time. Because inevitably the problem being a maker-talker is it's depressing. It is depressing because you have no validation mechanism from anywhere. So you just have to kind of like, And so what I like is that you have to remember is that sports has solved this. So number 1, this is something I share to my team all the time by Coach John Wooden. It says, never try to be better than someone else. Always learn from others. Never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's under your control. What you can control, you can control. If you get too engrossed and involved and concerned in regards to the things of which you cannot control, it will adversely affect the things over which you have control. It's almost like an MBA wisdom style thing. Allocate appropriately, build your portfolio, don't overbalance, okay? Second one, from Coach Pat Summitt. The absolute heart of loyalty is to value those people who tell you the truth, not just those people who tell you what you want to hear. In fact, you should value them most because they have paid you the compliment of leveling with you and assuming you can handle it. So I'm a huge believer in this because the work of working with other people is the work of building trust. And we lose trust because people feel they are not heard. And so on my team, I have a regular process of asking everyone who works with me, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What should I stop doing? What should I do more of? And what I love is that after 8 iterations of this, I've offered people to put their name in there, like non-anonymously. And I can now report over 80% of the people who do this give their name. And of the anonymous people who share how much I suck, like, you don't do this, you don't do that, it is not different than those who give their name. It's awesome, huh? It's awesome because How many times have you found useful someone giving you anonymous feedback? And it's like, I think you're not really good at what you do. And someone says, this is what's been given to you. You can't do anything. So I like that when someone tells me how I can't do something, I'll ask them, how can I improve? It's really easy, but it's really hard to do because it expects you'll be open to doing it, and you'll have others actually believe you're open to doing it too. It's really hard, but we've been building that. Alfred P. Sloan, he's the founder of modern managerial theory, also the General Motors company. He was a CEO for a long time. I take it we are all in complete agreement on the decision here. Then I propose we postpone further discussion of this matter until the next meeting to give ourselves time to develop disagreement and perhaps gain some understanding of what the decision is all about. Alfred P. Sloan, right? And lastly, John W. Gardner is very useful. So all of you who are leaders, just search for John W. Gardner, Self-Renewal. There is an essay on pbs.org that he gave to McKinsey Partners in late 1990s. It's also a book, but he's one of the great writers that existed. And I always read this. There's something I know about you that you may or may not know about yourself. You have within you more resources of energy than have ever been tapped, more talent than has ever been exploited, more strength than has ever been tested, more to give than you have ever given. Because leaders do this all the time. It's not a new thing. It's an ancient old thing. Makers tend to not lead because they like to make. They tend to disqualify talkers. But in reality, right now, making has to happen at scale. And I think all of you are choosing to do that hard work of living in that boundary. And I learned from all of you. I'm watching everything you're all doing. That sounds a little spooky. But I'm trying to learn from all of you about how I can improve in what I'm doing in my own company. So with that note, I'd like to bring up Nathan Curtis and Alexis Lloyd and Alison Rand. Come on up. This is Alison Rand, the head of design operations at Automatic, and this is Alexis Lloyd, head of design innovation at Automatic. Here we go.
Thank you, John. I'm curious, how do you keep your energy level high? You said everybody it's all about keeping your energy level high. How do you keep your energy level high?
I can't tell you how reading that helps me because it centers me. Who gets depressed once in a while? Raise your hand. Come on. And you don't know what to do. There's professional help, of course, which is important in some cases, but you need someone to tell you that this has been the normal. And so I just read that. It's like a 5-scroll thumb scroll, and I feel good again. So check it out.
So when I was working for a design system a few years ago, I would have to come in, and I'm an outsider, I'm a vendor, and I would always come in for the day, and I'd put my stuff down, and behind me there was this big sign that said, disrupt. And I was coming into a team that was growing from 30 to 300, and everybody was talking about design thinking, they were talking about disruption, they were talking about innovation, and standards was a bad word. Governance was a bad word. It was actually an outlawed word by the VP of design. And so how do you create a balance between disruption and innovation where you go versus operations and how you do all the things you do? And do design systems have to fit in one of those two places?
That's a perfect introduction to my two colleagues, because Alison Rand, formerly at Frog New York office in Hot City before that, and Alexis Lloyd led design at Axios, and before that led R&D at the New York Times. And so I look at this as a combination of figuring things out in the present and organizing, and figuring out where to go in the future. So that segue. What do you think about Nathan's question?
So I think that I've been trying to defend the term design innovation because it's now part of my title. So there's this kind of misrepresentation, I think, of innovation, or it gets thrown around a lot to mean kind of disruption for the sake of disruption. And I think of it more as being, I've been talking about it as being the deepest layer of the product design practice. So if at the top, sort of most visible layer, you have designing the interface. So where do the buttons go? How do the interactions work? And then underneath that, you have designing the experience. So who's your user? What do they need? How do you think about their whole story and how they move through your product? And then underneath that, like, you have this design innovation piece, which is really like designing the opportunity. And I think of that as fundamentally having like two pieces. And it's not willy-nilly, it is kind of structured and thoughtful. And the first part is about understanding your product in context. And when I say in context, I mean not just the context of like your product or your organization or even your users, but like the bigger world in which your users exist, in which you exist, and looking at how that world is changing, what technologies are emerging, how culture is changing, how consumer behavior is changing, and seeing where the gaps are, seeing where there are new opportunities that you can, that meet the needs of your users, that intersect with what you're trying to do with your product or your service. And then the second part of it is really about thoughtful experimentation. So there's a lot of not thoughtful experimentation where people kind of throw things at the wall and don't know whether it worked or not. So I think of thoughtful experimentation as like really like having a hypothesis about what might work, knowing how you're going to test it, when you're going to get feedback, when you're going to know if you won or not, and how you're going to go from there.
I guess I would add that coming from a consulting background, hearing that the desire for disruption and innovation is like key. I don't believe those words when I hear them, because my experience has always been that organizations often say that, but that's not actually how they operate. So what the experience that I've had with John and with Alexis now is that I'm trying to figure out how to set the stage for the now and the near, while they're figuring out the next, and I'm the pragmatic operational side of how to actually introduce what they're trying to implement at that underlying layer, because I speak their language. I have a long experience in working in design and design consulting, so I think I understand where they're trying to go. I can totally see it with them, but I also understand and hear what everyone is saying in the now, and that they can't even see the next necessarily, or the near. They definitely can't see the next, but they could barely see the near. So I'm trying to set the stage with them for those two places.
And I think that like what Alison does and what I do are fundamentally inextricably tied together, and that you don't get to the future, you don't get to true innovation without having deep sort of process and standards for how you work and how you go about getting there. And if you get there without that, it's kind of just luck.
Can you talk a little bit about the journey you're on at Automatic then, in terms of connecting people? And in particular, there's been some talks, as you might imagine here, that start to dig into the relationship of design and the makers of what we produce with design, the engineers. And so can you talk a little bit about how far you've come and where you want to take those relationships of people at Automatic, given the constraints that John had talked about?
So what I am, and we all are working on currently at Automatic, is really trying to connect the people. And I think what I was saying to you earlier, Nathan, is that it was kind of surprising to me to have this first experience in-house where these dots are not connected, where people are actually not talking to each other. So my first task has been really trying to break down those walls, to have everyone better understand what it is that we actually do as design with a capital D, as well as open up the doors so that we're accessible, because I think oftentimes the perception is that we designers live in this ivory tower and we kind of talk, and we make too. We deliver some things, but we don't actually understand what it means to be in the trenches, and so much of it is about communication, obviously, certainly in a remote organization, figuring out all the different ways to communicate, as well as figuring out the right ways to partner, which we've been doing a lot more of in terms of just building these bridges across design and development, which had never really been done before.
So John, I really appreciated how you talked about trust and the value you place in a group of people or even individuals to tell it like it is. And so design systems can be hard. They can be hard to make them. They can be hard, certainly, to adopt them at times. Even I was thinking about Google, and they called their project that resulted in material Project Kennedy. And so why? Because we do these things not because they're easy, but because they're hard. And so what about design systems so far in your journey at Automatic has been hard? And are you having those conversations with people effectively to expose how design systems are going to fit in their future?
Well, and by the way, thank you for all the messages coming in to my phone number. I will get to them. And I just want to note that I was so grateful to become Nathan Curtis's student because I had no idea what this entailed. I've been live for a while. There are analogous things, but I wasn't prepared to understand how complex it can get. And so Nathan led me through the history of different attempts and the different sort of styles that have been attempted. And I think over time I realized that we couldn't use any of those styles because, to your point, as you said, every design system is different because every organization is different. And by being an all-distributed company at the scale of 800 people, it already posed some new constraints that I couldn't predict. And that's why I hired Alison to solve all the problems. Thank you for solving them all. Yeah. And I've also had to change how I work in an all-distributed organization. So I've been building my own practices to change how I connect. Because the idea behind an all-distributed company is amazing. Because there are no walls. There is no barrier to seeing or talking with you. And at the same time, there's too much information, and it's too hard to organize. And so with my team here, I have been experimenting with how to produce information that can get to everyone.
Did either of you want to expand on that? Or I'm now really curious what's on John's watch. Do you want to hit one of those?
That's what this is for. You see, I realize over time that in the end, they need to get value in the audience. So to get value, we have to have information. So, okay, someone's concerned about my stat about artists being independently wealthy. I'll get back to you, Barrett. Let's see. Oh, it's good. Okay. This is from area code 201. I'm at this point of trying to shape what I want to become in the next decade or so. Can you provide some guidance, wisdom, or where to look for inspirations? What? Oh my gosh, you should follow everyone in this room. You should follow this man. I got to tell you, I am so blown away by how much knowledge is being produced, not in research, not in the ivory tower, in these rooms. And I can't discount how much of that is free information now. So that's how to do it. How about you? What do you think? How do you do it?
I definitely think finding people I admire and learning more about their process, following them, engaging with them if I can, and then I think also in past positions, finding the people within the organization who I think are doing really interesting work and finding ways to collaborate with them, because then you learn from that process and you learn how to begin to develop those skills, or you find what's most interesting to you and you start to hone in on what that path looks like.
I tend to try and surround myself with people who are much smarter than me, and also
Alison.
hire people who I feel can do my job. I told that to John recently, that I feel like that's. If you're in the position of hiring, but when now being at Automatic and formerly in my other places I'd worked, I'd been surrounded by so many people who were just inspiring me on a regular basis. And being in these types of communities now, certainly working in a distributed organization, it feels harder to have those connections on a daily basis the way I had in the past. But these kinds of experiences, and again, as John has taught me, to always remember the world, being in the real world and connecting with people who are smarter than me is really my...
And I want to bridge to surrounding myself with people who think differently than I do. And you talked about that. I think about the teams that I've participated on, and they all think different. I think about this community, and I know that I think different from Gina. Julie thinks different than I do. Dan, Brad, Frost, all those people that are in our community think different. And I know that as long as we're not jerks, we are open to seeing the world through everybody else's eyes and growing together from that.
Can I add one other thing?
Yeah, of course.
Also, being outside of this community, because it can be an echo chamber, like we all speak the same language. And so I would venture to say that having experiences that are very different from this, is ones that are much more expansive, because if you surround yourself by the feeds that are all the people that are saying the same thing, then you're not really growing.
Yeah, and I would like to your point about people who think differently. Actually, Julie's point about collaborating with engineers. I was just tweeting a shout out to some of the best engineers and technologists that I've collaborated with in my career, and I think the thing that's the best work that I've seen and that I've been a part of has been in situations where you have people who are coming with whole different sets of deep expertise and whole different sets of assumptions, and are in a space where you've built enough trust that you can really get into that in a really sort of constructively butting heads kind of way. And by doing so, you kind of begin to hone your ideas to something that is really much more powerful than you create if you're only talking to people who are thinking exactly like you.
I like that you brought in mentoring into the conversation, and that you helped us see the world different, because I hadn't thought about dead mentors before. But I also don't necessarily understand the what mentors are and where we find them, because I almost look at a lot of people as mentors that I don't acknowledge them as officially as my mentor. And I look at other people implicitly to coach what I do. And so can you talk a little bit about, in the time we have left with them, how do we figure out who our mentors are and connect with them enough?
Well, I've changed my position on mentors, actually, because as they all died, I had to look in the opposite direction. Like, all the younger people are my mentors now. So it isn't an age thing, really. It's a skills thing and curiosity thing. The second thing is that you mentioned the think about the world. You see, my mentors in my era, you see, I'm from the first generation of computer-human interface, sort of coding, design. I remember when I was ostracized in the early 90s for saying that designers should know code. I was like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, before he did the sleigh thing, before. That's bad, that's pathetic, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And it was pretty lonely. And so I'm kind of I say to Alison and Alexis, I'm like T1, Terminator? I'm like the messy one. I'm not liquid metal like Terminator. So I'm clunky, clunk, 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 So by being in that generation, where I had all these giants, I had Paul Rand as a mentor, I had Iko Tanaka, who in Japan is the Paul Rand of that, and there's a bunch of these people I had around me. They were the people who did stuff. But the most important mentor was Whitman Richards. Whitman hired me at MIT, and he was this wonderful man, and he was one of the founders of the cognitive science field. He was ex-CIA. He was a little bit sketchy, but interesting man. And I remember Whitman. I was in my 10th year at MIT, and the way that MIT or any university works is once you get past a certain level, you become like a Jedi, like a super Jedi. Like no one can kill you anymore. So you're like, I'm a Jedi. And there was some kerfuffle on campus. There was some problem, so the Jedi were all gathering to take it on. It was some MIT thing. So I was headed there, and then Whitman saw me as I was walking that way. And Whitman was like, oh, what are you doing, John? I'm going to go to the kerfuffle. And he said, why? He says, well, I'm going to take it on. And he looked at me in this really interesting way. He said, John, don't think about MIT. Think about the world. The world is what you're working in relationship to. If you just work in relationship to your institution, you aren't in the world. And so I think that for mentorship, looking to the world, looking to people who are different like you, I think that's the new model. And I'm so impressed because all of you have discovered this so much earlier than I did. So I really do learn from all of you.
Just one more thing on mentorship that I'm curious how many people here feel like they kind of work between a bunch of different areas. Can you raise your hands? So that's a lot of people. And I know for me that mentorship has been more complicated than I think if you're like deep in one area. If you're like, I am a visual designer. I am like a deep UX person that you can find mentorship more easily because the path is more clearly carved out for you. And I think what a lot of us are doing here is carving the path in front of us. And so for me, finding mentorship has been about finding a person over here who does kind of one piece of what I do and a person over here who does another piece of what I do, and then trying to do the synthesis to stitch all of that together into something that maybe hasn't been done before or hasn't been done in that way or in that context. And so I would just note that as I think a challenge that is out there for a lot of us.
You said maker talkers are doomed, okay? And I relate to what you were just talking about, which is in the field of design systems, I often feel and see that we are hyper-connected throughout an organization. We are not allowed to put our headphones on and do design. We're not allowed to just sit in front of Sublime and code up some React components or whatever it is we do. Part of our job is connecting with people. Part of our job is pitching value. Part of our job is writing well. Part of our job is supporting other people like we're tech support. And so that level of hyper-connectedness makes our life really complex. What are we going to do about that if we're doomed?
Not doomed, just unhappy.
So how do we get ourselves to be more happy, or at least intrinsically rewarded through that process?
Oh, well, that's simple. How many of you have experienced that unhappiness but saw an outcome occur 1 year later and you never thought it'd be possible? Raise your hand. That feels good, doesn't it? And you don't get any high five kudos from anyone important because they didn't see cause and effect. But you saw it. You saw it fall. The ball fell here, and then it kind of rolled around. The pancake came out, and then a frog jumped over, and it's kind of rolled around. And then it's like, oh, success. Right? That's what you all do. Talker makers know exactly when the ball dropped and when it went this way. It's fun. Yeah.
Alison, Alexis, anything more?
I don't think I can follow that.
Yeah. I'm good.
We make a lot of pancakes.
Yeah. So perhaps Alison first, then Alexis, then John. Can you close this out? We're going somewhere as a design systems field. And as you see design systems moving internally at Automatic, and you have a window into what this community is doing, where would you see us go, or how can you help us in our journey to get there? Where do you see design systems going at Automatic or as a field?
As a field. Where do I see design systems going? I can speak to Automatic, where I see that going potentially, because we have this complex problem opportunity of bridging between Automatic and WordPress community. So I think going through that process, it's amazing to try and build something. Or earlier, we often talk about Polaris and Shopify and like having this beautiful shiny project that everybody looks at, but thinking about the undertaking on the community side of things and not actually boxing ourselves in and putting our heads down or headphones on and like making something we think is incredible, but really validating that through this kind of gnarly community that we have that is beautiful. All of like WordPress .org is going to be this incredible learning opportunity, not just for ourselves, but I think for the web in general. If we can find ways in that we can get input and learn from the community, then this will actually have broad impact into on the web, and 32% of the internet that is run on WordPress. So the idea that people will start to understand what it means to speak a common language more broadly is incredibly interesting, and I think is a tremendous opportunity that we have in front of us.
Yeah, I would add to that someone was saying earlier, talking about how design systems are for engineers, they're not for designers, and the fear there was that that there wouldn't be work left for designers to do, or that it would sort of devalue the work of design. And I think that it's actually kind of the opposite, that it can empower engineers to engage with design. And I think that it can also, it can go both ways. It can sort of help designers understand how engineers need those tools to implement in practice. It can also help engineers understand sort of design thinking and how design decisions get made by like understanding kind of rules around different components. And then I think in an open source community like WordPress, it can really start to empower people to be able to create things that feel like solid visual pieces of a holistic product, even if they're not designers, and then to free up the limited design resources you do have to do that bigger picture thinking and to think about not just how do you implement all the little pieces of what's happening right now, but what's coming next? How do we build on this? How do we move towards the future?
I am from the era where open source bubbled out of the ground, and that's when nobody used computers at all, so big deal. Now everyone uses computers, and we use a lot of proprietary platforms that are amazing. What I've found, though, is that people in design systems are not closed to sharing. Working with the material team has been extraordinary because everyone is trying to make what they believe is a thing you're doing all the time, which is using a computer, might be better and easier for people that you hug, you love. And so what I see as the opportunity is this community is kind of like an intellectual property like problem for companies because they're sharing ideas all the time and they aren't attached to actual codes or algorithms, so no one's noticing that. I love it. I love it because it means that we can all improve experiences. My mother is 82 years old, and I love being tech support for her because I learned so much. Two things I've noticed she does. She has her younger sister is 78, and they always Skype. Her younger sister lives really far away, so Skype is awesome. But I was with her, and recently, she's like saying, goodbye, goodbye. Are you still there? Are you still there? And I said, what are you doing, Mom? Well, you know, sometimes we're not sure how to hang up, so we're just stuck together. Are you there? Are you there? So, first thing. Second thing is she asked for help on contacts. You know, she was going to like store a phone number and phone book, you know, her address book, you know. And so I said, how do you do that, John? And so I said, well, you know, you do this and this and this, and you hit edit. She said, edit? What does that mean, John? Mm-hmm. I said, it means change. Why doesn't it say change? And so these experiences teach us that these devices are used by everyone. And if we can give better design to everyone, how much better will the lives of people who we love, not say we don't love the companies we're in and the people that we work with, How many people can we impact in this way through sharing information? I think that's pretty cool.
Thank you, Alison, Alexis, and John.